Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World Collective Energy Share. This week's what? I had to think about it. Where are we? What are we doing?
Which
What?
game?
Yeah, which game today?
Which game are we playing today?
Yeah. So I felt like it was so weird. The weekend was very discombobulating because, we're at the holiday and it was like the holiday being Thursday, Friday. Then it was like, and then it was a weekend. And then it's like, what
Two
day is
weekends
this?
back to back.
It's like, what day is this?
Right. I kept expecting every morning to wake up and go, oh, it's Monday.
Right.
Oh, it's
Exactly.
Monday.
Exactly. Exactly. It was funny because my husband said on Saturday, because we had our little pre-discussion, our little like whatever on Saturday instead of Friday, because since Friday was Christmas. And I'm like, oh yeah, Sarah, whatever. And he said that totally threw him for a complete loop because he's like, wait, what day is it? Wait, isn't it's Friday? Is it Friday? Because that's
Yeah.
when we usually have our thing. And then it's like, nope, nope. Saturday, but yesterday was Christmas. So I'm like, yeah,
Right.
so you gotta figure that out.
Doesn't count.
Nope, doesn't count.
So we had to jam Friday, Saturday into one day.
That's right. But yeah, so I know a lot of people have felt some real jiggy stuff going on, like especially last week. Christmas Eve was honestly, I had a great holiday. It was really nice and restful. It was very quiet with my
Right.
family, and we actually did a really good Christmas together this year. And so it was good. But the funny thing was, even going through it on Christmas Eve, I was so anxious and it just kept on growing and it was getting more irritating. And then I was like, flow, flow, flow. All I could think of was flow, flow, flow. And I saw a lot of people had that kind of weird displaced anxiety come up as well.
Yeah. Christmas Eve was challenging.
Then I wanted to point it to something, and then I was getting all like, oh, it was just such overreaction to little things, and I could see it and all that kind of stuff. But then, so Christmas Day was like flow, 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 and all I kept on saying is, I'm going to flow through this. Look at this. I can sit here and be present and be in
Right.
a place of love and nurturing,
Right.
And then it was funny because Christmas Day was much better. There was still a little bit of some jigginess underneath the surface, but to me, it was much better. And
Right.
then it came back again Saturday morning for a while. But I did realize that what happened Saturday for me, because I had like this meltdown over something that was pretty minor, had to do with a situation that I created for myself in doing my self work, where I am manifesting as I've requested to let go of all of the stuff, the history that I've held on to in my cells. Right.
Right. Right.
And so what happened was something that happened before that really affected me deeply came up on Saturday. It was triggered off of a minor thing, and I'm like, why am I overreacting about this? And I'm crying and I'm sobbing and I'm like, what is this? So I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, even to me, like, I'm trying not to judge it,
Right.
because in my mind I'm like, this is ridiculous, why am I so upset? And it was like, oh, because it was connected to this. And it was funny because you said that too, that you had your thing.
That was Saturday night. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was from a past thing that came up. And then I realized in meditation yesterday, I had a beautiful, like 2 hour minute, like all weekend had great long meditations. It was like, oh yeah, you asked to do this, right? You wanted to
Right.
do this. I wanted to release the history from my cells. Well, whatever was left of that history that caused me to hold on to fear and grief and whatever came up to be released. And that was the only way my body knew how to
Right.
release it. Right.
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay. Well, off with that. That's
Right.
great. So, but that's a lot of so last week, good morning, Gloria. That's a lot of last week what we were dealing with, because we did last Monday didn't we talk about this last Monday? That
Yeah.
letting
With
go of history.
the flushing it out. Right. Out of the history out of ourselves and the kidneys and the balance and the, yeah.
Yeah. And so that is what I feel like has come up for a lot of us collectively, because that's what we started saying, right? Was let's flesh out the history that we're holding on to
Right.
that isn't in existence anymore, that we keep on creating again, right?
Hmm. Right. Which I did some of that last night, and it was like I could not for the life of me figure out why is this coming up again. I've done that. I've released that. I have reconciled that. I have, all those things to that. And it was like, but I still held it as a memory. And what I kept thinking last night in the middle of the night when I decided that that was more important than sleep, um, that I hadn't deconstructed it,
Hmm.
and I hadn't disassembled it, because it still was a full picture and a
Right.
full depth and breadth of a sensory activity. And it was like until I sat and consciously disassembled it because it was residing in my unconscious, then it was like, oh, okay, yes, I have gratitude for this. I see it in a whole different light, and it's different than I thought it was
Yeah. Yep.
or believed it was.
Well, yeah. When you remove that egoic attachment, right? And then that's really, where our conversation went on Saturday had to do with the attachment,
Right.
right?
Right.
And we started talking about, um, well, gosh, how did we even hit on that? The attachment, the attachment.
Well, looking at my notes, you said something that really struck me about, can I let go in this very moment just as easily as I can stay here?
Right. And I was like, and so we've been talking about, right. We've been talking about that for years, right?
Right.
Good morning, Nicole. Good morning, Yasmin. Yeah. And so part of what we've been talking about for years has been that coming so fluid as to and accepting and flexible, right? And that's non-attached. That's non-attachment
Right.
of saying, so if your guidance was to leave your home, leave your family, leave whatever you hold most dear,
Right.
could you do it and know that it's going to be fine without like grieving, like having a huge, you know,
A
um,
transition period at all.
transition period at all, right? And so like we've been like I had that thrown in my face in like 2012, 2013, and it's like, well, come to that place of knowing that you could stay or go in your marriage or your
Right.
family or whatever at any given moment. And wow, that's a lot for the ego to process because we attach so much to who we are based on our attachment to our kids, our spouses, our families, our living situations, and all that kind of stuff, right? So then we get pushed out of that. And so we've been getting pushed out of a lot of things this year,
Right. A lot of comfort
a
zones.
lot of comfort zones. And then what came up in our conversation Saturday was, okay, so let's look at the real thing here, right?
Right.
If you were pushed, if we were pushed, or if we decided, or if we came to the moment of saying it is time to be done with humanity, what we have created as humanity, are we as fluid to leave it as we are to stay? And that's where the collective ego went, what?
Right.
Because we've defined humanity and we've judged it and created it as a good thing in some way, right? And we have
Right.
glorified it and we have, prioritized it and we've
Well, and
loved.
that's when the conversation took us to how we've taken humanity and inserted it in the creation process
Yes.
at the highest level.
Yes, at higher levels of creation where that's beyond here is that like right, and I can't remember what it was you said where it hit me because I was like, oh, that's what we've done because we've become so attached and love this so much
Right.
that we had started to make decisions at a higher consciousness level based on some constructs of humanity that we have decided were good or bad. which
Right.
then just it explains a lot of stuff like we've even done with our consciousness transcendence sessions in our
Right.
quarterly things, like that whole like, judgment of, oh, but that's so bad, oh, but that's the good, that's what we want to do, and it's like, oh no, because that's still judgment, and now we're judging it based on what we think is good or bad, based on like the whole human experience of what we have chosen to create.
Right.
And now it's like time to say we're done, and to take
Right.
it
All
out
of
of
it.
that, because it's now marring and holding back the whole project, the multidimensional project, multi-universal project, or whatever,
Right.
multiversal project, because we have locked down a certain part of it to have to be defined by something in duality that doesn't really exist.
Right. In an effort to evolve beyond duality, we've evolved duality to the point where we're trying to bring it with us.
Exactly, because we're like, oh, this is so fun. But I mean, in duality, but that's the thing. Duality doesn't only exist here. It's all through the multiverse, right?
Right.
But
Right.
it's our version of it here that we want to employ elsewhere, right?
Right.
And it doesn't really fit. It's like saying, oh, well, I was in this department of, say, like, I worked in this marketing department, and now I'm going to be working in the labs, and I'm going to take the same things that work in
Approach.
marketing to the labs. It's a different, it's just
Right.
a different function. It's like apples and oranges. It's like saying, well, I want orange juice, so I'm going to squeeze apples.
And have the expectation that it's
That's
orange
going to
juice.
taste like orange juice, right? Which we can create, but then it changes in that process of creation. It changes the what we call the definitions of each one, right? So
Right.
then, we were talking about, my daughter had gotten the Oculus, the virtual reality game, at Christmas, right? And I said the thing was, she had, so we were playing like, whatever it is, power beat thing or whatever. It's like a dance lightsaber thing or whatever. So we're playing that, and then we had gotten her this um I forget what they call it, the wing shooting, right? The parachuting, like that when you jump off and you have the wing suits,
Right. Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
The
Yeah.
wing suit thing. And so we were playing the power beat thing. I was playing it, and then she just changed it for me to do the wingsuit thing. And immediately I changed from this, it was out there in 3D virtual reality of, this particular space, but then it goes right to, I'm standing on the edge of a platform looking down through mountains all around me and ready to jump. Which I will say, the first time I did that was, whoa, give me a second. I have to like readjust my whole perspective here,
Right.
because I'm now like, like, and that was when I realized what we have created sight to be such a priority
It is.
in terms of our senses. And we love how we manage our senses, our physical senses here, based on sight, in so many.
Right. And we allow it to be take the place of all the senses to a certain degree. So
Right.
like we were talking about that, and I was like, but it's like if you splash down in water, it's not like you feel the water. And then I said, well, you'd need like a whole suit
Oh,
to
right, to
have
do that
that
in the
full
virtual
body
reality.
experience.
Right.
And then that led us to, well, just like our bodies are that sensory suit.
Right. And that's the whole thing, is like, yeah, so we do play virtual reality when we come into these meat suits.
Right.
Yasmin, who's here with us, who didn't want to put hers back on.
That's right.
But it's like, it's like, so when you put that virtual reality, headset on, it's crazy how you're suddenly just transported someplace else completely, right? You're still standing in
Exactly.
that same room, and so you keep on changing. You change games, you change like um uh
Surrounding.
surroundings, environments, you can, you know like, and they say a lot of some of the games, because of the jumping off cliffs and things like that, they'll say people who are subject to like motion sickness might have
Right.
problems playing this until they get used to it. Or there are some games where they say you might want to play sitting down until you get used to, if you, if you're new to virtual reality. So the funny thing is looking at that, because there's so much about that, right? So we get into these suits, which is our headset,
Right.
right? We come play this virtual reality game because it is a virtual reality.
Right.
And
It
then we
really is.
forget we're playing the virtual reality game
Right. We get
because
lost in the game.
we love it so much. It's like playing, okay, I just don't want to leave this game. It's so fun.
Well, and then when we get pulls that it is a game and that we need to leave, it's like, well, I can take it with me.
Yes.
I can bring it back out with me.
Right.
I can keep this.
Right. Which we can in terms of completed experiences, but then it's like, but to have the full experience is to cut our senses off from the higher consciousness
Right.
to create this density of this immersion into this virtual reality, which is what we
Right.
created. Right. And so it's like, as soon as we take it off, we're like, oh, yeah, that was so fun. Or that wasn't, or wow, that was intense or whatever. And now I'm done with it. But wow, what a game.
Right. Right. That was awesome.
Oof, I need a break from that before,
Right.
But, and the thing was, it's funny, the more we do it, then the more we're used to it. Oh, I'll just jump right back into another bodysuit, meat suit. I'll
Exactly.
just jump right into
Right.
another
Oh, and
meat.
this time I'll remember.
Yeah. But then you don't, because you really love that immersion experience, or you do to some degree. And that's what we're starting to remember now is, oh, wait, I'm playing this game. I'm playing this virtual reality game.
Right.
Because now we're creating virtual reality games to remind us we're playing a virtual reality game.
Exactly. Exactly. All day yesterday, I guess at one point, we were walking the dogs. And I was walking around this pond, and I could feel the wind and the warmth of the sun, and I could see the water, and I could hear the water in the pond we were walking around. And I was like, okay, so this is my full body sensory experience of what I think I'm doing. So what does the other end look like? Me sitting there with this with the mask on. And it was interesting to almost like go back up the channel to see, and to identify, okay, I'm just creating this experience for myself.
Right.
And that it changed it, but it didn't change it. It almost made it more beautiful to think that, look at this that I've created for myself, and look at how I've chosen to enjoy it. I've
Right.
chosen to feel the warmth of the sun and the cool of the breeze and hear the sound of water and kids playing on the playground. And it was like, and I did all that for me.
Yeah. Well, and
And that
even the other stuff, right? The stuff that's painful or, you know,
exactly,
and
exactly.
it's the things that we power through are the things that we've created to really be present with, right? So this all ties a lot of the stuff we've been talking about
Right.
the past several weeks together. And yeah, yeah, it's been so the thing is this is we've immersed ourselves so much in that game that because we love it so much that we've forgotten we're in it.
Right. Right.
And so, and by the way, it's the Matrix. It's totally the Matrix.
It
It's no
is.
different. What's their virtual realities? They plug in the back of their head, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we just step into the suit.
Right.
And so we can do, so the funny thing is we think, so it's like, okay, yes, we can do things out here, beyond the suit, obviously, that are like, because that's where the creators,
Right.
right? And what I was guided to do in meditation over the weekend too was claiming what I called, which was such an interesting thing, because I don't usually use this terminology is the all mother, to claim that as me, right? To know
Mhm.
that, and in that creation, to know that, and the all father, by the way, I said the all mother and the all father, but then it was funny because when I went to Sophia, then I was like, was that the original concept? Is that it was the whole thing? I don't know. But then it was like, well, but then it was seeing the creation of separation and knowing it and feeling it and not losing connection. at the same time.
Right, which I think that that's why we've ended up here is we believe we've lost that connection
Yeah. And so we become attached to this game.
to the point where we don't mind losing that connection.
Right, because we're like, oh no, but that's how we have to have the sensory experience is to do
Right,
that, right?
right,
What if we just created it differently so we could and we did and we didn't simultaneously?
right. Which I think that that's being in that place where we can leave the human experience just as easily as we can stay in it.
Yes. Yeah. So if you wake up one morning and it's like time to go, it's time to go.
Right.
There goes our fear of death, our fight to avoid it, right? Our um our
It's almost
obsession with linearity, you know.
right, and it's almost a oh eh, what is it? It's like our Achilles heel. It's what we use to um oh God, what's that word? When you force somebody extort. It's what we use to extort each other with is that fear of death.
Right.
Convince them to do things or feel things because you
Right.
might die.
Right. And it's funny because I look at I've been looking at the virtual reality thing all weekend because I'm like, it fascinates me to see how I haven't seen it. Like I knew it, but it was like not being able to see it so clearly before, right?
Right.
And then that whole thing of death just goes away. In fact, the best was the part in the wingsuit game I was telling you about where you could turn the blood on or off if you
That's
crash.
right.
So I went to go play after we talked that day. I went to go play again in my daughter's room oh, I said, where are the controls again to turn the blood off? She goes, why do you want to turn the blood off, mom? It's more fun with the blood. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Let's just leave that on, right? So there's one time I like came around this curve and I'm just heading straight for this rock face. And this is what I do with my body. Oh, here it comes. And then it goes splat and you just see the blood.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's
it was funny.
well, and if you'd had the full meat suit on, you would have had more sensory input.
Well, and the funniest thing is they show the body bouncing down the rock afterward.
Oh wow.
And you're above it. Then you're not the person anymore. And you see the body just bouncing down the rock and the blood splattering. Oh, and it's not like it's overly gory. It's not like it's like really, really detailed, but it was just funny
Right.
for me to get through that. And then I was thinking about that in meditation one day. And I was thinking, yeah, I think it was yesterday. And I was like, it's funny um because I was like, you know what? Um I look at like I have these memories of all these different lifetimes and I used to joke about how violent I've had so many violent deaths,
Right.
different
Right.
weird odd deaths and everything else. And it came to a point of, well, when I was allowing myself to still fast it and have guides come to me, like, and I still do that sometimes, but when they come to me to show me a face of something I need to understand or remember, like when I would have those discussions and I would go to a different life and see the end and be like, I mean, it came to this thing where it was a joke, like, okay, well, how creative was I this time? Like,
Right.
and it was, and people, like, I would tell people about this and they're like, what? And they get horrified. I'm like, no. Yeah, okay, so there's a moment of pain, but then you're done.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, look at how creative that was.
Right. The moment of pain until you remember that you're creating the pain.
Yeah, and then you're out of it anyway because you stepped out of the game, you stepped out of the movie,
Right.
and then you're looking at the whole thing, right? So interesting. But anyway, Gloria asked how you extort somebody to do things because of fear of death, and she doesn't understand. Well, because that's how we manipulate the entirety of our entire culture. Oh, don't do this, so you'll die. Don't
Right.
do
Well, isn't that what this COVID is?
Yeah. Like if you
And
get
and now it's not only you have to do it to keep yourself safe, but you have to do it to keep all those around you that you love safe, as well as everybody else. The whole country, the whole world depends on you
right,
staying home,
because
wearing a
the
mask.
implication is um like in the manipulation is it's bad to die, and so we need to avoid that at all
At
costs.
all costs. Right.
So
Right,
that's what
and
it's,
medicine has taken that to the extreme of every life should be saved, even if there's no quality of life, but it's still a heartbeat and a
yeah,
breath.
right. Which is, there's a lot of debate about that because there are places that do allow,
Right.
um, what do you call that? Assisted
Well, DNRs, and then there's,
assisted suicides even in some places.
right, assisted suicide, and then, gosh, when you withdraw life support.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't see
Yeah.
comments on
On the
my
thing.
phone, so I'm glad you can.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's random, right? Which week one of us can see it, one of us can. I notice when I
Right.
do my thing on Thursday, sometimes I see comments, sometimes I don't.
Right.
So it's like whatever. Yeah. So that's what Sarah meant by that in that whole comment about extorting somebody for things because of death, the fear of death, because it's constant in terms of it's constant. Our entire culture is
Right.
built on that.
It is.
And that's where the fear comes from. The fear is, oh, don't do that or you'll die, right? Don't
Right.
do that or, like I mean, there's like probably 75 to 80% at least of the stuff that people fear has an underlying end note of because then you'll die.
Right. And then if you take that a little bit further, it's like to die means you're alone.
Yeah.
So it's that fear of isolation, separation, the epitome.
Which is funny because as soon as you step out of the meat suit, you realize, oh, no, there's no such thing, right?
Right. Right.
And that's all there, and simultaneously that's all there is because there's only one whole consciousness or whatever.
Exactly.
Gloria says, I don't believe a life ought to be saved if there is no quality of life. Well, yeah,
Right.
that's
Right.
but the thing is, it's our individual choice. And really, as we get higher in consciousness, there is a point where if we are not attached to being here, if we are not attached to being here or being gone, guidance is you're done,
Right.
and then you're done, right? And
Right.
there was one life that I remember of the many where I was really powerful in remembrance and was riding a horse and felt like the horse slipped. It was like by a crevasse or whatever. And so I fell into the crevasse and I was like laying there. And it was interesting to have the memory of that because the interesting thing was I perceived the pain in the physical body and I
Right.
was completely unattached to it. And I thought, do I want to take the effort to repair this
Right.
or do I want to just go? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I'm just going to go. And
And
that was
start
it.
over.
And I just left. And there was no like grieving. There was no like, but I just stepped out of took the virtual reality
Right.
hat and decided
Took the headset off.
I'll play another game.
Right.
But but when we lose the fear of when we lose the fear of dying, so look at how many movies, how many stories there have been about people who get their like their notice of they're going to die in x amount of time, right?
Right.
And how they then suddenly learn how to live because they've lost the fear of unknowing, of not knowing. So they're like, okay, I know it's coming, I might as well enjoy every moment while I'm here. Why
Right.
not do that all the time
Exactly. Exactly.
and then not get attached to it and say, okay, this has been great, I'm just going to take this off now, and now it's time for me to move on, and either I put this out or I go play another game or I just stay in creation or whatever. Gloria says, sometimes I think people need permission to go from their loved ones, that they'll be okay. Oh, well, I tell people, I can't tell you how many people who I know who are dying to go.
And I remember I told my mother to go and she said no. So the next time hospice called us in, I didn't say anything. I didn't want to delay her.
Yeah, because she was going to show you.
That's right. It wasn't your choice.
Pretty much most of the time I've gone in to say something to somebody, um, they've gone right after. Because they do. A lot of people decide, oh, I've got to stay for this person, for my
Right.
family, for whatever, when it's like, but why would and then somebody I spoke to recently who, you know, was so was so distraught about their spouse dying of a terminal illness,
Mhm.
and the spouse's children had actually said, adult children had said go, and
And
this
s
person and the spouse said no, no, like not the spouse that was sick, but the spouse that was, that was like distraught, said no, told the other person no, 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 don't go, even though she knew
Right,
it was the
right.
best thing. And it's like, well, what did you expect? And, having a session, we were talking about that. And I said, well, what did you expect was going to happen? If he's decided to go that way, then let him go.
Right.
Would you not have let him go? Well, I don't know. I know it was better and da da da. But then, and then there's all these fears. Oh, is he going to hell? Is he gonna, da da? Like those are the things we've constructed to cause ourselves
Right.
to fight the idea of dying,
Right.
right? And I'm like, well, honestly, we create the hell more here than anything else.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
why not be free of that?
Exactly.
I mean, or not. That's fine. That's part of the game. And that's the whole thing. And people say, well, why would we create hell for ourselves? Why would we create, torture for ourselves? Okay, well, let's look at the virtual reality games. Let's look at the games out there. You have zombie games where you're fighting people trying to eat your brain,
Exactly. Or you
and
fly into mountainsides.
you fly around size and get squatted, splatted, either bloody or not bloody. It's like,
Right? Blood or no blood.
oh, well, Gloria says, yeah, then you're the only thing of yourself. Well, that's the whole thing. And so we have gotten into this backwards world of believing or convincing ourselves that we're doing things for other people. It's really for ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
And whenever we say, I'm doing something for somebody else, well, it's not always, but a vast majority of the time when we are motivated to, oh, I'm a good person, like I'm doing this for other people, and look at how, because really what it's saying underneath is, look at how good I am.
Right. Right. This is about me.
Yeah.
And I need that external validation that
Yeah.
I'm a good person.
I need you to think that I'm a good person. So I need these people to think I'm a good person so that I feel better about myself, because I don't feel that way about myself to begin with,
Right.
which is that backwards world kind of thing. And so we've convinced ourselves, oh, well, when you do things for other people, that makes you a good person. So you can sleep well at night, right? Versus what if I'm just to know that I'm innately the divine,
No matter what I do.
no matter what I do, and I've created all this and you can't take that away from me. And all I do is commit myself to nurturing and remembering that, and self-love and whatever, then all I do, again, as we were talking about last week, is be effusive and show that with everyone.
Right.
And you don't have to tell me you appreciate it. You don't have to believe I'm a good person. You don't have to do anything for me to stay in that state, and
Right.
but so the point of this week has to do with this non-attachment, this realization of the temporary nature of all of this, no matter how
Right.
long we create it, for eons
Right.
or millions or billions of turns around the sun that we have here. There's a show that I discovered last night. It was funny because we have, as we were talking about before we got on the air, we did the 1 month of HBO so that we could watch Wonder Woman
Right.
1984 on it on TV. And so I was like, oh, what does HBO Max have? And they have some stuff. And there was a show they had that's all like ultra high def. The A World of Calm, it's called. It's a little mini series. It's got like I think 8 different episodes. And they show, like, one is all on a coral reef, and it's just incredibly beautiful visuals and calm, soothing music. And then they'll highlight a person that like immerses themselves by living in it, like, and there's a celebrity voiceover with, of course, some of the best voices we know, right? Keanu Reeves is even one of them. Idris Elba, Nicole Kidman, like there's like whatever.
Right.
But Idris Elba did the narration for one that was like the expansive universe, right?
Oh, wow.
We were talking about how, oh, it was incredible because it brought back what we've talked about so many times, is that old uh PowerPoint that used to show like the cell and then pull out and pull out and
Right,
pull
the
out.
concentricity.
So you got all the way out to galaxies, and then you saw, like how it looks exactly the same, right? The
Mhm.
concentricity of the
Right,
universe. And to watch it in that state, and they do play the right music, and you're just like, and I'm just like, oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, it's talking about Earth as part of the Milky Way, and how many, how much is in the Milky Way,
right,
planets, and we're talking about suns and like it was just incredible. And then at the end they pull out and it's like, okay, and then the next galaxy next to the Milky Way galaxy is Andromedan galaxy, right? And they're
right.
talking about like 10 trillion stars in that galaxy. And
Wow.
then your mind just goes, right?
Right,
And they pull out and they just show it. And then as they start pulling out and they show these galaxies in space, right? Which it just looks like when you see the sun coming in the window and the speck particles that are floating in the air. And
right,
look at that. Look at how beautiful that is.
right, right.
And look at how we create little microcosms of the recreation in these little pieces within it. It was breathtaking to me. I was like, oh, okay, I have to stop now because I'm like becoming so overwhelmed with like how awesome this is.
Right,
Right?
right.
Boy. But
I
yeah,
might choose to leave my meat suit right here.
that's right. That's right. I can remember the whole thing. Yeah, it was cool. And so like it's not to fear. I guess that's what like, and that's what I feel like,
Right,
that's what I feel like we're resisting, the letting go of all the history and stuff, because we're attached to it so much, right? We want to hold it in the meat suit. It's like playing a game, right? That you have to like hold all the history on so you can get more, power
right,
ups and all that kind of stuff.
right. Exactly.
And it's like, but that's not even required because we're the ones who create the power ups to begin with, and that's what we've forgotten in the game.
Mhm.
And honestly, it felt crappy physically for that stuff to come up last week, except that once it was gone,
Right,
God, it felt so free.
right.
And it was so funny because my husband said something. He's like, so how are you? Yeah, I think it was yesterday. He's like, how are you today? Because I'd had that meltdown on Saturday, and I'm like, what? I'm fine. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
I don't know what you're talking about.
it was so yesterday. I don't even remember.
Right, right,
That was so yesterday. So, and that's okay. So I think that's part of what we're here to talk about, like, or just to say, is that it's okay. And that edginess, the thing is, and I mean, instinctively, basically, I was just guided to just consciously think flow, 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 let it flow through, let it flow
right,
through, let it flow
right.
through, let it go. Um, Yasmin says, I watched the movie Soul last night. It totally relates to the meat suit theme. I saw that on Disney. I have to take a look at it.
Yeah, I've read lots of comments about it,
Yeah.
but I have not watched it yet.
Yeah. So, um, yeah. Oh, so you want to talk about, let's stay on the movie theme. We'll jump on another one that I watched this weekend was we watched Mulan, the movie, not the
Uh-huh.
not the animated one,
Right. Live action. Right.
which was fine. Like there are so many like negative reviews and people get, so anal about, oh, well, this dress isn't from this century, it's from this. And it's just like, you know what? It was a movie. I enjoyed it.
Right. Right.
I enjoyed that virtual reality game right there. So the thing that I was thinking about was how we have, and what they kept on talking about chi, right? Oh, you have that special chi that makes you a warrior, and
Right.
women aren't supposed to have that chi. Like it was just interesting how they did that, and people are complaining that they use chi and da da da, and I'm like, no, but chi is energy. That's the
Right.
basis of acupuncture and acupressure and basis of how we function. And no matter what you want to call it, it's energy, it's chi, it's whatever. But we have glorified, how we were talking about the backwards world, how much we've glorified that. Oh, to have that extra specialty is to be a warrior, which
Right, right.
perpetuate the separation.
Yeah,
And to die in honor is to say, oh, I died by mastering this game of separation in war, in battle, right? It's like, wow, we've done that in so many ways.
right, right. Yeah.
So yeah, so and that shows our attachment to it. Um, it shows our
Well, and even in our futuristic entertainment, we take those battles beyond here and into space and into that. And it's like,
well, and there's that what we are talking about. There's that what we're trying to pull it out,
right,
pull the experience out of the virtual reality game, out into higher consciousness, into multidimensionality and stuff like that,
right,
where we have created that to some degree. And in a way, we've sort of infected a lot of other dimension, infected, made them
right,
like
right.
like cancerous. Like remember I said, oh yeah, well this has sort of become like cancer, right? The
Yeah,
experience then the session with me. Um so it's really to flow. It's for us to flow and allow that release, number one, right? To be conscious of it. And if it feels really crappy, it's because it's really deep.
right, right,
Stuff that we've buried deep into our cells, our meat suit, so that we can perpetuate the feeling of it. And I was just like, no, I don't like this anymore. Right.
right, right.
And when it came up, it irritated me as much as upset me. Right. And then I was just like, okay, but let me observe that at the same time of being irritated and upset and
Right,
flow through it. So, and then by the second time, the second round of it, so I had one big round of it like Saturday morning, a second big round of it came Sunday afternoon, but it was only a fraction of what it had
mhm,
been in the morning, right? Because it
right,
was like, oh, let's clear it. It's like flushing the kidneys. We're flushing it all out, right?
right.
And so it's like, okay, well, when you flush something that's been like saturated and filthy for so long, it takes several washings sometimes,
It does, it does.
And so it came up again. And the second time it came up, I was able to just voice the feeling.
Right.
And then it was gone. And then by yesterday, I was just like, oh yeah, that was so yesterday, right? So if it feels crap, Nicole says if it feels crappy, then one is pinched off from remembering. Yes. But it's just being immersed in that separation, right?
Right,
Immersed in the energy of we like that pain, right? Remember we talked about that? We like that pain.
right. We do. We
We like
bore all the sensations.
right, as well as ecstasy, as well as pain. So we hold it in ourselves because this way, every time something similar comes up, we want to say, oh, this is what, all right, when I took acting lessons and classes and stuff back when I was in high school, right? When I was a teenager.
Mhm. Right,
And I remember in this acting class I took the Stanislavski method. And I remember our teacher, he would say it in a Russian accent because it was from a Russian who started it.
right, right,
To be great actor, you must suffer, right?
right,
And that still sticks in my head. And to do like a certain part, the theory was for you to immerse yourself by pulling up a memory of something that caused you to feel the same way, so that then you would immerse yourself into the energy of that character and with that, uh, actual energy and emotion that's
right,
related, right?
right.
So then what do we have to and we do that with life. We store it away and say, oh, this is just like when so and so died. This is just like when this happened. And I'm not doing that to make fun of it. I'm doing it like I sort of am, but to make fun of myself and all of us, to make fun of ourselves, to just say,
Right,
people we're just sort of calling ourselves on our own shit, honestly.
right, right, right,
And to say, okay, well, if I let that go and just say, okay. Well, if I held on to every death in my life, oh my God, what a storage I would have to have had. Storage,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so, like, what do? You save this one. Oh no, this one really hit home. And that's what happened Saturday. This one really hit home. So I'm going to hold this one. I'm going to hold this one in the cells. I can let these
Right.
others up because this one, to be
Right.
great actor, you must suffer right here. I'm going to bring this right back up.
Right. I'll need this one.
And so, like, and that was bringing it up, was letting it flow through, even though it didn't happen. It was like, oh, I was like, oh, I'm on to you. Let's pull this
Right.
out.
Right.
We're flushing all this out. And then it's like another part of me is like, oh, fine. Well, then I'll let you feel through all of that again. Right. But then once it was gone, it's like, oh yeah, that. Okay. Well, whatever happens, happens. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we hear like some of our most intense emotions have to do with death. Goes back to,
Right.
because we grieve and we don't realize that grieving is completely self-centered and egotistical, right? And it's
Absolutely.
no judgment about that,
It
but
just is.
it just is. We've created this entire experience of loss, of belief of loss, and separation because somebody stepped out of their meat suit. They stepped out of the game before we did.
Right. Right.
Maybe it's because we're like, oh, well, we feel like we missed something, or we believe we're not whole. So yeah. So anyway, this is probably I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg.
I agree. I agree.
And I feel like this week is going to be a lot of flushing.
I think so, and I think that a lot of people would like to think that they're flushing 2020 out of their system, but it's
Right.
actually more than that.
Well, and maybe this whole year has been flushing to bring up the
Right.
stuff so that we can be free of it. And we said, okay, we're just going to create this protracted period of time to really pull this up.
Right.
Except I feel like that we have a lot of it to still flush out.
I agree.
Because
I was watching something, I think it was, oh, CBS Sunday Morning or something like that, obviously yesterday morning, and they were, the year in review and all this kind of stuff, and and I just sat there and I was like, I remember thinking at the end of 2019 how hard it was, and oh, 2020, it's going to be the year where everything's good. And it's like, well,
it was
I,
really good in a very different way.
exactly, exactly. It just wasn't quite what everyone expected.
Right. And it actually has been a phenomenal year because it has forced us
Right.
to start letting go of things that just were holding us back.
Right.
And the continuation on is, do we accept the letting go, or do we continue trying to hold on, which will then make it more clunky, more challenging, more hard until we completely implode because we have no other choice but to let go? Or do we just say, okay, yep, I see it, it's gone, I'll cry about it, I'll let it go, and move on.
Right. Find the gratitude, move on.
Find the gratitude for, yeah, right. Right. That's a really key part, is the gratitude.
Yep.
To say, oof, I'm glad I brought that up to clean this out so I don't have to have that experience again and again and again, even though I loved it as much as I hated it.
Right.
I loved hating
I
it.
loved to hate it.
Yes, I loved hating it. And it does not decrease the value of this virtual reality game by letting it go.
Right. Exactly.
But like any video game, what happens? You eventually come to the end of the game.
Right. Or at least the end of a level.
Right. Well, you have levels within the game, and then at some
Right.
point you finish the game.
Right.
So, and do you go back and do it again? Yeah, but the thing is, there's no space and time, so it's always in existence and completion as it is, and in its entirety. As a
Mhm.
game is, it's created that way so that you can
Right.
tap into it in any space and time, right? So it's very, so start thinking of it that way. If we can detach ourselves, start thinking of it that way and say, okay, well, this has been a fun game. But here's the thing, if we're always playing this game, if we're putting so much energy playing this game, then what other games are we missing?
That's true. Very true.
That can be even better. So,
Right.
I feel like today's session is simply allowing the flow of letting go,
Mhm.
coming to that place of acceptance and gratitude of completion of that, and really to be observant with what's coming up that's making you very, us individually and collectively, very uncomfortable, because it's stuff, it's what we asked to do, is to pull up the stuff that we've held in history that we're letting go of now, that's held in ourselves, so that we can be free to create a new game to move forward,
Right.
right? And to let go voluntarily, and to allow it to do so is to observe some things that might be uncomfortable, but that's part of the game too,
Right.
is to experience the discomfort
Right.
and to observe it and have gratitude for that too. And when you do that, it lessens the discomfort, it lessens the clunkiness that it can have in the experience, and whatever else. I don't even have any more words, so let's just go and do that.
Right.
Shall we? Ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. For everybody who's just listening for the first time or don't know what we're doing, just now you close your eyes and take a couple deep breaths and relax. Allow yourself to connect in and to, I say receive, but really it's to allow yourself to remember in this way and to experience it fully through. Okay, yeah, that was really cool. I saw eventually, it took a while because there was this whole chatter of no, well, then how much fun is it? How much fun is the game if we let go of all this stuff and it's not as challenging? And then I was seeing, like, playing a video game, and it's like, when you get those cheat things, the cheat codes, when you can go through,
Right.
and then it's like, we'll see how, like, that's not really that fun because and then I saw I went back to the concentricity thing, and I saw that it's one VR game inside of another one, inside of another one, inside of another one. And it was like, oh, well, of course that would make sense because I could just do that here too, right?
Right.
It was, and then it was, oh, for us to really fully enjoy all the other levels of VR, right? Is for us to align and let go of the stuff that holds us into these other levels. And I was like, oh, look at how, oh,
That makes perfect sense.
that doesn't make it less fun. That makes it more fun because now we don't get stuck in the little like cave that we can't seem to get out of because to get
Right. Right.
to another level. And then it was like, oh, and then it was like I heard this collective, oh, it was like aligning it all. And I was like, oh no, that feels good. That felt really good. Yeah, that felt okay. Like sort of something let go then. Yeah. How about you?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. There was so much. First was oh, it was almost like a play. Like I was the only real person. And it was like as people like left my purview, whether it was, like my husband goes to work or my daughter goes to work or my kids are off at school or whatever, they essentially cease to exist until I call them back into my reality. And it was just like, oh wow, so I can determine, they had a good day or they had a bad day based on how I wanted to create my little. And it was almost like, you see a stage and the lights go down and it's like they essentially go away, and then when you bring the lights back up, it's however you set your stage. It was fascinating, and it
Yeah, that's
reminded me of some science fiction, whether it was a movie or a Star Trek episode or whatever, where you know that there's an individual and they have to create a reality because he's stuck there.
mhm,
And it was like, oh, but that's me, and I'm there and I'm creating all this around me. So it was really,
that's cool.
really.
Oh, I'm very tingly from that.
Oh yeah.
Well, and that's also in quantum physics, that's the Schrodinger cat theory, right? Schrodinger's
Right.
cat. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
interesting. Ooh, wow, I'm all kinds of tingly from that. So, all right, well, let's,
Something small to go into the new year on.
yeah, nothing big to talk about today. Oh, Nicole says, I had a similar experience. At one moment, I felt this great release and I didn't notice how tense I was before. And afterward, this great feeling of well being flowed over me. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. It's like something aligned that just feels incredible. It's great. All right, guys, we'll have a fabulous, fabulous week. And, I'd say New Year, but quite honestly, it's just a construct of what we choose to create.
Right.
And it's just our choice as to where we go from here. So we'll see you next time. And actually, just stay tuned because we're gonna do some sessions. We're gonna do some stuff online later on this week around the new year and see if y'all want to join us. So stay tuned for that. Probably tomorrow we'll be putting up that stuff. It's sort of like a little thing Sarah thought of, which I thought was a great idea. And we talked about this weekend. So have a great one, and you'll be hearing from us. We'll talk to you later. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Evagnoni.
signing off on this week's Ascended World. Have a great one.